I would like to invite Mr. Han Bing and Wang Wenfu from Tianjin Academy of Science and Technology for Development and Hebei University of Technology. I will give you extra 10 minutes, so please do not worry. And Han Bing is very welcome. Han Bing is a representative of IBTA in China. So he helps us, and we are going to have more activities from IBTA in China rather soon. So the topic of presentation is solving the problem of construction mode for traditional industry park in the large cities. Mr. Han, please.
Okay.
Okay, we see everything.
Can you see the screen?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Thank you, Barry. Good evening and good afternoon and good morning, everyone. I'm Han Bing from China, and I'm so glad to share a real problem of my own in the social science solving by business TRIZ. And this problem is about a construction mode for traditional industry park in the large cities. That is about city planning. Yeah. Okay, here's my personal introduction. I will quickly. And my talk will be divided into 4 parts. First, I will briefly introduce the scenario of this problem, and then I will introduce the problem analysis and solving by business TRIZ tools, such as contradiction, subfield models, and trends. And at last, I will give the final solutions and a brief summary. Okay, that is the scenario of the problem. In China, there are many traditional industry parks in some large cities, especially in the urban district. And these parks are built in the late 19th century, in 1990s, and have made a great contribution to the development of cities for many years. But after several decades, many parks are starting to fall into the operating difficulties due to the poor management, poor infrastructure, and the poor fiscal revenues. Yes, a park existed for more than 30 years. The infrastructure is really outdated. Yeah. And so these parks are difficult, continuing to play a role in promoting the regional development. Specifically, there are several problems. For example, the parks are scattered, small, and the layout is disorganized, and lack of impetus for traditional industries. And for the park administrations, they are just as property service providers and rent collectors with bad service. So it led to the departure of many companies originally in the park, and many careers will be idle. Here I want to explain a word, careers. It is a special noun in the city planning. Yes, let me look at this picture. Here is an industry park. In this park, there are many buildings. Well, here is a building. We can regard a building or a plant, an incubator, as the carriers. There are many forms. This is a carriers, this is a carriers, this is a carriers. Every building, each building can regard as a carriers. So in this part, it is more obvious. For example, here are 8 buildings, so each building can be regarded as a carrier. Okay. Let's back to the situation. This problem reflects that there are some difficulties of regional development by relying on industry park. And the first is existing industry parks cannot carry new functions to promote the development of industry. And the second one is the new industry park needs a lot of input, but for abilities limited, especially lack of money. So we should design a new mode for traditional industry parks to adapt the current development environment. Okay, let's analyze the problem. First, we can determine the ideal final result of the problem. A park can play the role of promoting development of cities and boosting innovation by itself. Therefore, the better way for achieving IFR is building a new park. Everything is new. That is just as one word said, great oaks from little acorns grow. Yes, everything is fine, but the most realistic problem is lack of land, because the area we analyzed is the urban district in the large cities. For example, in the center of Beijing, Shanghai, Hong Kong, St. Petersburg, New York, just as these large cities, in the center of these large cities. So the land is very, very insufficient. If it is in suburb, maybe totally different, yes. So we should determine our scope. And a most suitable way for the cities is transformation of existing parks, which is easier to achieve IFR. But it is more difficult to reconstruct existing parks than building a new ones. Yes, in fact, we can building a new park by our minds, by the current criteria, of course, but it is more difficult for it. So we can here we can get a technical contradiction. If we are reconstructing existing parks, then it is easier to achieve IFR, but more difficult for reconstruction. So we can transfer it to a typical parameters by Schroeder's matrix. And the improving parameter is ease of operation, and the worsening parameter is ease of manufacture. Okay. So we can get the inventive principles from Schroeder's matrix and get several corresponding solutions. Here are the corresponding inventive principles. Okay. And the solution first, we can integrate existing ideal carriers as a whole new park. This is from taking out and merging. In fact, there is no park which is built. We just combine the existing ideal carriers in different locations as a new one. And then we can use the chain mode, a business model. We will unify the planning, the operation, the management, and the service quality in the new park. So the company can enjoy the same quality of the service no matter what carriers they are in. So here, another problems is appeared. We use the chain mode. We unify the planning, the operation, the management. Should the functions of the carriers be unified? So here's the secondary problem. How to plan or define the functions for the carriers on different locations? Here's the secondary problem. So here we can use the trends of business structure evolution. We can choose a line, diversity increase. And here is the line, yes. Here is the line. Homogeneous with shift part, and heterogeneous and inverse system. Here's the example, and here is our solutions. For example, if we want to develop in software industry in the park, in the homogeneous system, in the all carriers, software industry will be developed. And if the system is homogeneous with shift part, we can choose one or two carriers to develop IT outsourcing, and the others in software in others, yes. And the heterogeneous system, the part can attract the software and the IC design companies in the different carriers. And the inverse system, software and hardware can simultaneously development in one part and different carriers. In China, here is a word said, IT application innovation industry. So the government can know what kind of companies they should attract located to the park. Okay. All right. And besides, we can also use function analysis. Here is the function model. It seems very complex. Okay. So we can simplify the function model. Here is the simplified model. Okay. In this model, we can clearly find that there are some function disadvantages. And for example, here is the harmful function, and here are some insufficient functions. Okay, by function analysis, we can choose key disadvantages by the innovation situation questionnaire and a lot of interview. we can choose this one. Here is the important disadvantage. Administration operate the carriers is insufficient. Okay, on the basis of function analysis, we can build a subfield model like this. Here, A is administration, B is carrier, and this obviously is an insufficient subfield model. Oh, sorry. I'm using to call it subfield model. Actually, in IBTA, it will be called as object field model. Yes, sorry. So we can use the inventive standards for business 1.3 to solve it. And here, C is a new object as intermediary. In this problem, C represents professional organization or professional team. So here, C, professional team can help the administration to operate the carriers. It means C and A together operate the carriers. Also, C can replace A. Yes, the professional team can operate the carrier directly, and the professional team can be regarded as the administration. Okay, that is the two ways. Okay, and by the lot of interview and innovation questionnaire, we will find another situation. Nowadays, a surge of entrepreneurship can be seen in China, and there is a very popular word said in China, mass entrepreneurship, mass innovation. I think many people have heard it. So many people start their life of entrepreneurship, especially the college students. When they just finish their undergraduate or graduate school, they come to the large cities and become makers. In fact, for many years ago, I just finished my graduate school. I was become a maker in Beijing. So the goal for the makers are very simple: living in peace and working in contentment. Here is the Chinese explanation. Yeah. Okay. Actually, the makers can work in the carriers, but their living should be provided by the super system, society. Because in the large cities, the industry park have not enough land and money to carry out the living function, and the super system is society can provide the wonderful living infrastructures. But as is known to all, the living costs in large cities are very, very high. And for the makers, they just finish their school and have no stable income to support. So it is necessary to reduce their living cost. How to do it? Okay. We can also build an object field model on the same way and using another standards, monopoly. So here we can add a new system A2, carrier for living. In fact, it is the same physical carrier with two functions, working and living. It means the maker's startup is also their whole. In this way, we can take some specific measures to achieve. Later, I will introduce it. Okay. Okay, and here is our solutions. The first measure is integrating all the idle parks and operate them as one park. We can establish a new administration for all the idle parks using chain mode and introduce professional teams and for operation and increase the differentiations for the carriers on different locations. Meanwhile, the function of the government should also be transformed from the supervising and the intervening to helping the companies. Here, as we know, the supervising and intervening the companies is the harmful functions. We should change the harmful functions to the useful functions, so we will help the companies. Yes. For the makers, we can build some apartment and take some measures for reducing their living cost, such as tax incentives and waivers, one-stop services, infrastructure for public service, and basic necessities of life. For example, a small restaurant It's not like, it is not luxury, just for the makers only. Just is fine. So a small restaurant, small cafe, and laundry and gym, just for the makers is okay. We don't need very, very large and very luxury. Yeah. Okay. And let's quickly enter my summary. I will introduce it more quickly and saving the time to other people. Okay. Yes, we can find that in the future, the way of expanding the scales for industry parks are not suitable for the future development. So we should find new possible ways. For example, changing business model, adjusting industrial planning, improving the competitiveness of industry parks, and balancing economic development and people's livelihood. By solving this problem, we propose a new transformation mode. It's called zero-cost entrepreneur community. That means we can transform the park into a community, integrating work, life, leisure, and entertainment. And we can also build some startup apartments that we can unify the location of home and companies for makers. And finally, the professional team should be introduced for industry park operation. Okay. Okay, and maybe a few minutes left. Okay, I want to share some digression. How to apply TRIZ in business. In my opinion, there are mainly 3 ways for the current practice, at least in China, yes. The first one is using classical TRIZ tools to solve business problems directly. And the second is appropriate adjustment or modification for the TRIZ tools for fitting the application in business. And just as Valerie introduced yesterday at the beginning of the conference. And the third one is using new tools or specific tools to solve the problems, such as RC+, VCM, and others. And yeah, in IBTA, the lecture 2, I introduced more in IBTA certification requirements. Of course, a great contribution from Valerie. Yeah, and maybe there are some new ways, just I don't know clearly. For my personal practice, I conclude these 3 ways. And in my own practice, I will choose the suitable way according to the problem. This way is not which is better or which is worse. No, which is suitable for this real problem. We just choose the suitable and fast to solve the problem. Yes. In fact, customers are not concerned more about whether your solution is clever or not. They don't care. And they even don't care the ways you choose. They don't care the way themselves. They are more concerned about whether the problem can be solved or not. Just as a Chinese word said, it doesn't matter if a cat is black or white, so long as it catches mice. Just as this graph. I don't care the cat is black and white. I just care which cat can catch the mouse. If it can catch the mouse, it will be a good cat. I don't know, is there any idioms with similar meanings in your countries? I really don't know. So in my case, maybe the different ways are apparent. In this above, there are the first way and the second way are apparent, yes. Yes, in my other practice, there are all 3 ways are apparent. So the suitable way I would be chosen according to the actual situation. Yes. Okay, maybe time is up. Okay, that's my presentation, and thank you for your attention. I'm very pleased to answer questions, and you can contact me afterward by this ways. Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Han, thank you very much for your very interesting contribution. And I also I would like to thank you for your efforts you're taking to promote business trees in China. That's a huge task, definitely. The country is very big. And well, I'm very interested in continuing observing how you're going to deal with that industry park. Of course, industry parks, I mean, because I hope that you are going to be more involved in the future in this problem, in this project. And we all would like next year to see is there any progress with that.
Okay.
Because it's a big problem, definitely. All right. I think then there are some questions, and let me read them. Okay, the first question is from Hans-Gert Grabe. What type of field does F stands for in the subfield diagrams? Well, maybe I will tell a little bit to Hans-Gert, because in business trees, we prefer not to use subfield. We use object field model, because definitely the word substance for business trees is out of, it's not used very often. Well, sometimes it can be substance, but in much better would be to replace, and what we did, we replaced the word substance with word object. But for F, we also have a list of fields, in technology, and we are compiling a list of possible fields in business applications. Mr. Han, maybe you can say which F you used in your model.
In my model, and the F is operate.
Okay.
Operate, yes.
Because F might be informative field, it might be emotional field.
Yes.
And so on.
Okay.
All right. There was the second question was from Anton Kazumako. Hello, Han. Thanks a lot for the great case. Actually, two cases. There is a question about a resolving way. What do you think about resolution of contradictions and a high level of studying problem? What advantages does this approach have?
Yes, when I do this project, first I will train to the employees from the administration and the government, and maybe they will familiar more about the contradictions. Yes. In fact, it is not the most suitable approach, but they are more familiar and they can generate their ideas very faster for it. And in my other cases, I will use some advantages pros. And in my now I have a project about using TRIZ to solve the grant mode for the government, but the project is in progress now. So maybe in the next TRIZ conference, I will share it. This is in the logic of a RIZ by Vladimir Petrov.
Okay, thank you very much. From Richard. Dear Bin Han, beautiful first and second problem. Just for my understanding, startup home like that and a startup company, most incubators are welcoming companies for 12, 18 months. Will you need that flow through of companies needed for your case in startup homes?
Good question. Yeah. Yes, the incubator can carry out these functions, but nowadays in China, for the Chinese makers, 12 to 18 months will be a little short.
Okay, thank you. From Arthur Jeffert, COVID is waging war with current concept of the built environment. Our environmental enclosures need to be versatile to convert layout and applications. Today, many central business towers will be changing condominiums at excessive costs.
Okay. Yes, a good suggestion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's, well, during last 10 months, my home became my office completely because I used to travel every second week. And last 8 months, the largest distance from my home, it was 20 kilometers. But my workload increased twice. So my home is actually now is completely 100% my office. All right, from Richard. Is that paper you referred to available in English? Possible to share?
All right, you can contact me from my email or Skype. Okay.
All right. Okay, Mr. Han, thanks a lot.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.